fantastic.
Check it out, folks. I'm actually going to throw on my headphones for this one because I want to make sure that there's no real. I recently did a interview with a guy named Muti, and he was in lockup at the same time as Mubia Jumal, and actually some of the audio on his stuff was just not was struggling just a little bit.
Okay.
So, all right. So now I do hear you good. It seems like my volume is a little bit loud, so I'm going to turn myself down just a little, just a smudge. Okay. It seems like it's getting better now. Let me get a sound check from you one more time, Mr. Richards.
Sound check. 1, 2, 3, 4.
All right, that's great. Yeah. Hey, by the way, this is also a guy known as the All American Socialist. I'm gonna let him introduce himself a second, but just so you know, one of your biggest fans, his name is Jordan. There's a group called the Yellow Brick Road. We used to actually have a whole group of people in a Discord that would sit down and watch your streams, and we talk about it. So that's pretty wild, man. So I don't know if you ever heard of.
I appreciate that. I think I remember that actually.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Sometimes there would be some interaction. Yeah, there would people be talking back and
absolutely.
forth.
I
Amazing.
haven't live streamed in so I haven't live streamed in so long. It's been an issue.
I think they're going to be watching this too. Yeah. I
Yeah, I
would be
got
very surprised if they weren't. Yeah. But that's cool though. So the man himself is finally here. We get to learn about yourself. So
Absolutely.
just interested. So the thing is, if you could introduce yourself right quick and say, yeah, just give a quick introduction overview of yourself.
Okay. Yeah. As you see, my name is Michael Richards. Michael T. Richards. I go by the All American Socialist on YouTube. It's a little bit tongue in cheek. I was originally the disaffected socialist, so you can kind of see why that's tongue in cheek. I'm from a very, very rural area in Pennsylvania. It's called the Pennsylvania Wilds. You guys should probably check it out. Cameron County, one of the most sparsely populated areas in the United States. So I kind of grew up in the lion's den when it comes to dealing with right-wing politics. We used to have white supremacist rallies pretty close to my home, maybe 20 minutes away, a yearly thing for the Aryan nations. And I think that bothered me from a young age. Definitely got me politically activated at a young age. I've always been concerned with classism. That was probably the first thing I was worried about. I didn't know it was called that, but I knew poor people were treated less than. I went to school, public school. I graduated in 2006. I joined the Marine Corps. I was in it for 5 years. I deployed once to in Operation Enduring Freedom. So we did bomb the shit out of Afghanistan. I'm gonna keep it real. Obviously, we were going after the Taliban and Al Qaeda, but we know how that turned out. A lot of times, funerals are getting bombed, weddings are getting bombed, random gatherings are getting bombed, which is one of the reasons I'm more anti-war now than I've probably ever been. After I got out of the Marine Corps in 2011, I went to Penn State, the Pennsylvania State University, not Penn, which is the Ivy League school. I went to the Pennsylvania State University in State College, PA. I did telecom management. I finished a 4-year degree in like 3 years or so. Got it out of the way. I used the GI Bill. I got the GI Bill, so I don't have any student debt. It's a pretty nice thing. After I got done with that, I started actually doing social service work. I started doing social service work. I worked with cats, worked with dogs. That kind of took a bit of a shit during the pandemic. And I've been in a little bit of a, I don't know, economic state of bewilderment ever since, looking for more work to do. I'm in the same position economically as a lot of Americans.
Okay.
Okay.
Now it sounds. This is actually a fascinating beginning. To tell you the truth, I like a lot of what I hear. Now it sounds that you are actually someone who's actually very compassionate, which is cool. You started at a young age. Myself too, right? We have this calling, right? We want to do more for our community. It's interesting that so you started off with kind of like being against racism and stuff, which I really appreciate, right? You being a white guy yourself, or maybe you're mixed. Do you have like maybe any Native American, or what is your?
Not that I know of. We're
Okay.
just, Italian, Irish. There's some Dutch there, Scottish, Welsh. You know.
So racism bothered you just because it just seemed inherently unfair, I guess, right? Was there any other
It's-
particular reason that was one of your buddies, right, black or
we,
other?
I did have black friends. I had Hispanic friends. We had
Okay.
Asian friends at a young age. There are not a lot of people that aren't white in Emporium, Cameron County,
Okay.
but there are certainly enough to where you can't freaking miss these human beings.
But then, right?
And
So it seems like you're going down this path. But then, like, if you decided to go to the military, maybe that was for the GI Bill. But sometimes that is at odds, right, with some of the more progressive leanings. So
absolutely.
how did you actually was it really just for the GI Bill, or what was that all about?
Well, it was definitely partially because of 9/11.
Okay.
Okay, that was a huge part of it. I recognize Al Qaeda and the Taliban and all these groups as far right wing groups. That's what I consider
How
them. I
old
know
were you
some
when
people,
9/11 happened?
13,
Okay.
14, 14. I was 14.
I was like in
Yeah,
my, I think I was in
I
my
still remember where I
20s. Yeah.
was, like most of us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's all right. So it's good to know. Yeah, that was a very defining moment for a lot of youth. Yeah,
One of the
I can
things
see
I
that.
got to mention this though, like one of the things about my service was that I had to serve under George Bush and Obama for a little bit. But even though I joined the Marine Corps, I still considered George Bush as, in essence, like my mortal enemy.
Right.
I felt like he stole the 2000 election. Even at that time, I firmly believed he stole the election at that time due to the shenanigans in Florida. I understand why people don't agree with that, but that's
Okay.
how I felt at the time. The shit with the GI, not the GI Bill, the freaking, he did do the post 9/11 GI Bill, but the GI Bill already existed. Uh, the shit with the Patriot Act to me was an irreconcilable contradiction in American society. We're
Right.
supposed to be a society that has Fourth Amendment rights. The Patriot Act does away with due process, things like that in the FISA court. The invasion of Iraq, I opposed that at the time.
So what's really cool about you is you're asking yourself deep existential questions, but then you go on to help animals, which I'm saying I love animals too, right? But have
Yeah,
you ever done any other humanitarian work or other type of like um, just aid for you probably have, right? You just seem like the type. Have you?
yeah. I've
Yeah.
done like I am a social service worker, but I do like free. I do free labor, for lack of a better term.
Well,
I'll
that's
sign
awesome, dude.
people
I
up for
love seeing social workers.
Medicaid,
That's really cool.
get
I
them
didn't know
into
that.
freaking. A lot of people, what I've noticed is they don't have bank accounts. They're not registered to vote. They don't have an ID. They don't know that they're eligible for Medicaid. All these different things that can immediately boost them, can immediately put them in a whole different space. And that's definitely something I've been
I
doing
qualify
in
for some of this stuff, but like then you have to contact these insurance agencies. And I don't trust the insurance agencies and stuff. So
absolutely.
they made extra barriers and stuff, and yeah, I just don't trust the whole process just from beginning to end. So but I appreciate people that are doing social work. I thought about it, but then I felt like I was too much under the directive of program administrators with
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
So I really
Ours is
resisted
called
that.
the Office of Developmental Programs.
Okay.
They're a little like they're hands off when it comes to helping the clients, as they call them. I kind of hate that term, but if we do something wrong, they're going to be all over us. So
Okay.
I can empathize with that. There's a bureaucracy there that exists to preserve itself, as opposed to helping people who need help.
So what's
And
your yeah? So you said your activism kind of started with like fighting against racism and stuff. Or would you at least say your activism started there, or like 'cause that's kind of so? Did you do any organizing at that time, railing, or was that
well,
like
I
just
was
something
only
you noticed?
the
Yeah.
first time that I found out we had white supremacist shit going on near me. I was only like 9 or 10 years old.
Okay.
So I obviously wasn't organizing or anything like that, but I couldn't stop talking about it to, my parents, my neighbors, other adults. Like, what do we do about this?
Right.
What do you do about it? Uh, you know, from what I remember,
But when you did
most
right,
of the answers were stay away
but when you did get into
instead of
organizing,
confronting you.
when you did get into organizing, when you did get into what was the first cause that you kind of like really worked on or campaign? Yeah.
Oh, trying to get George Bush out of office.
Okay.
Trying to get George Bush out of office. We were
Good to know.
registering voters.
That makes
Registering
sense.
voters.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, so different people, obviously you have the word socialism in your name. Different people
Yep.
have different philosophies or different, models for, solving the issues. Are you a socialist, and what does that mean?
Absolutely. I am 100% an international socialist, and I can tell you exactly what it means. It's not just worker control of the means of production and we leave it there. Okay,
Okay,
it's democracy in the living space, so that means independent tenant unions. It's democracy in the learning space, that means independent student unions. And it's democracy in the workplace, which means rank and file committees or independent labor unions, wildcat unions, whatever the hell people want to call them.
Okay.
Those things, all of those groups, it has to be international. This is very important. It cannot ever be done on a national basis.
Okay. So
You cannot, because you cannot. There's a reason for that. You can't give these weaselly imperialists, billionaires, oligarchs, mega millionaires, corporations, conglomerates. You can't give them anywhere to hide. You have to smash their power bases while you're building up your own. And how we do that is through linking up all of these groups internationally, forming like Voltron, and freaking moving on the institutions. That's how you take them.
Okay. Have you so quick question, I got a couple of questions about that. But are you actually associated? So we know like there's some socialist groups in the United States. Some people, probably the most famous one is Democrat Socialists of America, also associated with AOC. But there's other organizations as well. I used to be part of something called ISO, which disintegrated. Actually, my branch was kicked out before it disintegrated. That's an interesting topic of discussion all on its own. But are you associated with any particular brands of socialism or any particular groups?
I definitely lean towards the ICFI, which is the International Committee of the Fourth International, which was started by Trotsky, of course, back in the late 30s, early 40s. Their political party exists in almost every country. It's called the Socialist Equality Party. They have a youth wing in every country.
Extremely interesting. Now, at this point, right now, the thing is that for people that are into the socialist thing, I'm a little bit into the socialist thing.
Yeah.
It's interesting you said Fourth International. I'm going to get back to that in a second. But the thing is that this Trotsky. So, are you a Trotskyist? Now, the thing is that some people have this. They're like, "Oh, Trotsky bad," but once again, he's not all bad, all good. But it's interesting, right? Yeah, very rare to find Trotskyists or self-admitted Trotskyists for me right now. Go ahead. Are you a Trotskyist?
I look. If anybody called me a Trotskyist, it wouldn't bother me at all.
Okay.
Simply put, I consider myself an international socialist. I believe in the permanent revolution. I cannot abide by socialism in one country, which is Stalinism. That's Marxist Leninism has this idea of socialism in one country, and then we go from there. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. That's why the Soviet Union dissolved. I consider Stalinism, Stalin, to be the gravedigger of revolutions, and I align with them on that. And one of the reasons that we align so much is because the scientific and historical nature of their political program. Like I said, it's international in nature. They got it in almost every language. They have youth wings, freaking media wings, parties in all these different countries. And to me, it is the closest thing to orthodox Marxism or Leninism that you're going to find.
Wait. Okay. So wait a second. Okay. So that's an interesting thing. Whoa. This is. Thank God you finally came on the program, because we've been going back and forth for years, waiting for this moment. Yeah. So this is very cool. But I don't know if you've heard of Theo Chino or seen my work with something called SDA over here.
I may have.
Oh my goodness. So the thing is that, the argument here is that, we're actually working with the Socialist International, or the second, because you're talking about the fourth one.
Yeah.
But this is the second one. So actually, when you talk about Marx and Lenin, wouldn't that be closer to the second? The Fourth International was called by Trotsky. Look, I'm not mad at and before we go on, for the people out there that want to simplify things and say Trotsky bad, okay, what is Trotsky, and what is the difference between the Fourth International, the second, because first we have Marx, Lenin, then we have the Stalin, then we have the Trotsky, right? So what is going on? What is the difference between the second and the fourth?
Well, look, in order.
What is a Trotsky?
In order, it's Marx, Engels, Lenin, Trotsky. Right. And I can tell you, and the difference is that Trotsky was actually involved in the revolution. Okay, so the revolution in the Soviet Union was fought to create 16 countries. Okay. It was not fought to create one country. It was fought to create 16 countries, so it was already considered international in nature. And of course, it was fought during World War I. It popped off during World War I. So Lenin and Trotsky were both heavily involved in that. Trotsky was the leader of the Red Army. So he led them to victory. And then after World War I, he helped repel a Western invasion of the Soviet Union. A lot of people don't know about this. But America and Britain and a bunch of countries got together and invaded the Soviet Union right after World War I to try to reinstall the white Russians, as they call them. And this is where it starts for me. All right, socialism. It starts with Marx, Engels, Lenin, Trotsky.
Okay.
Okay,
Cool.
and of course, they form these internationals, as you mentioned, and the Comintern. I think you guys have probably heard of the Comintern, the Communist International.
Okay.
Okay, they form these, right? Well, what is the difference between one and the other? Well, one, Stalin's, recognizes this theory called socialism in one country. Okay, this idea that you need to have some sort of détente with imperialist countries before you can even secure your own revolution.
Okay.
It's absurd to me. I don't even know. I don't even understand where they first came up with this concept to deviate from Marxism, from Engels. Okay, because of course Engels and Marx are permanent revolution guys. Okay, and look, if humans are on Mars, if humans are on freaking Neptune, we're there.
Okay.
Right.
So
Socialism's
let's
talk about
it because I know the word Trotskyism is actually triggering for some of my audience. So let's talk about the criticisms of Trotsky, because I do know, right, some of the actual, right, there is a divergence from Trotsky from the traditional Marxist lines with that formation of Vanguard Party, and also there's some criticisms about his background and also the role of the bourgeoisie as in terms of the revolution. This is all theoretical stuff. And I believe those are the major, for me, that's how I understand the controversy around Trotsky. Maybe you understand it differently. But what do you understand the controversy to be, and how do you address those?
The main issue between Trotsky and Stalin was the difference in opinion on permanent revolution. So Trotsky believes in permanent revolution and internationalism. Stalin believes in nationalism and socialism in one country. And nationalism is diametrically opposed to socialism. Not national identity, not the formation of a polity, but the theory of nationalism. My country, right or wrong. My country, naturally better than yours. You get what I'm saying? This idea that all nationalists, quite frankly, have, that there's something intrinsic about their country that makes them somewhat better than other people, instead of appealing to the broadest sections and deepest layers of humanity at the same time. So instead of appealing to Belarusians or Estonians, we appeal to workers, tenants, and students, because those three groups right there are the broadest sections and deepest layers of humanity. It's not bankers, you know what I mean? It's not politicians. It's not even inmates, which is actually a pretty large portion of humanity. It's not even debtors necessarily. It is workers, tenants, and students. And which one are you going to go with? Are you going to go with workers, tenants, and students? Or are you going to go with a bureaucratized nationalist polity? Bureaucratization cannot work with socialism. The same way it doesn't work with a union. Think about it for a second. Think about any labor union that's ever sold out their workers. Workers aren't selling themselves out. They're not voting against themselves.
How do you eliminate bureaucracy in socialism?
Well, you can't even really have it. Is the point? If it's like, let me point to go to the labor unions.
So
first.
you would just get rid of the managerial class.
You can't have you can
or you would
would you have a manager in the workplace? I guess, but a managerial class that is the way I work, associated or part of ownership, because that's how I look at it. Okay. I don't look at managers as just class traders or something like that. Okay. They work at the behest of executives who work at the behest of ownership, and a lot of them are in ownership.
Okay.
So management is much like a bureaucracy. Think about it this way. The bureaucracy of a labor union that has been bureaucratized, one that is no longer rank and file. You've heard of the Amazon labor union, right?
Yes.
That's supposed to be an independent labor. It's just starting. It's supposed to be independent, almost like a worker co-op in some ways, right?
Okay.
When it comes to the UAW or something like that, you have a massive labor bureaucracy that is cozy with management, and they attach themselves to the Democratic Party in the United States. And what happens is that bureaucracy then exists just to protect itself. It's not trying to expand the union. It's not trying to raise wages, better benefits, improve working conditions. They exist simply to protect themselves. You see similar things happen in student unions and tenant unions. It's just not exactly the same. You definitely see the same thing happen in governments.
I'd
where
like to
there
once
is,
again highlight your experience of working for the military and also working as a social worker. Once again, this guy is very qualified, and the fact is that a lot of people, right, yeah, want to listen to these ex-comedians and stuff. Hey, man, I know they're funny, I know they're entertaining, and
yep.
they deserve a spot, but honestly, if you're not including people like this, then you got to really ask yourself, what are you doing? You know, it's up to you to decide who you choose for your sourcing.
Yeah, we have a problem
Yeah.
on the left right now with a hyper focus on protecting politicians like AOC, or protecting your favorite podcaster, your favorite shit poster, instead of defending workers, tenants, and students. It keeps coming back to that for me every time. The political program for an international socialist like myself is actually really, really simple. You can describe it in about 12 different lines.
Okay.
Labor unions, independent; tenant unions, student unions. And what are they there for? They're there to democratize those spaces, but what are they supposed to do? Are we supposed to get bogged down talking about, this trans person or that drag queen? By the way, I love trans people, and I have no problem with drag queens and cross dressers, and I'll bust a motherfucker's head if they try to smack them around in front of me, because I've seen way too much bullying of these groups.
I understand.
It's been vicious.
Yeah.
What I have seen.
You won't tolerate inhumane behavior.
I just can't have it. I just can't
that.
have it. Not
I
in my
appreciate
state.
that. I appreciate
Not
that.
around
Yeah.
me.
I get that.
Okay?
Yeah. You're not allowed to do that type of stuff. Yeah,
No.
I get it. And I
So it
appreciate
doesn't
people
mean
like
I
you,
want
because
to.
Too many people are willing to let that happen, and that's
It doesn't mean I want to ignore them. Look, one of my main lines as a socialist is arming people, arming, training, educating, and organizing internationally. I believe people should be armed up.
Okay.
Under no pretext should we surrender our weapons. And when it comes to these spaces that I'm talking about, and these unions, their goals should be pretty obvious: to link up and take over the institutions, and then you can pass whatever the hell you want: universal basic housing, universal basic income, universal health care, tuition for all, pre-K, child care, you freaking name it.
Okay.
You can do those things. And while they're at it, the labor union is fighting for higher wages, better benefits, and improved working conditions. The student union is fighting for lower tuition, better benefits, and improved learning conditions. The tenant union is fighting for lower rent, better benefits, and improved living conditions in the meantime, right?
Now, when you came up with these ideas and stuff, right? Yeah, I know some of it's
Yeah.
from your own personal experience, but also you may be influenced by people you read. I know that it seems that Marx and Engels have had significant influence on your way of thinking. So, what are really the influences that maybe, or are there influences that really guide your way of thinking, not just as in terms of political thought, but also your activism as well?
That's a good question. Look, growing up, you get influenced by a lot of different people. They may diverge later on, and you don't agree with everything they're doing right now. For me, a perfect example would be George Galloway. To me, he was a real heavy hitter back in the day. He's kind of drifted off into the pseudo left, and is a bit of a disappointment. Chris Hedges, I love him. I don't know about people. They kind of have a problem with Chris Hedges right now because he wants to work with people who are a little too conservative in their opinion. Look, I trust Chris Hedges for the most part because he's been doing it for so long.
This is about you, not me, so go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know if you ever heard of Christopher Hitchens.
Okay.
He definitely had an influence on my atheism at the very least. I disagreed with him on Iraq.
Okay. Are you atheist?
I'm an agnostic atheist, yeah.
That's cool, okay.
Yep. I have nothing against religion, though. I mean, I got the freaking Catholic stuff all over the place.
You were raised Catholic. You're Italian.
I was raised Catholic.
That's cool.
I was raised Catholic, yep.
That's cool.
They got it. That church is a mess.
It can be, yeah. It can be good, it can be bad.
It is a disaster.
It can be bad, too, yeah, oh my gosh.
Look, that gets into something I've been talking about a lot is, we mentioned tenant unions, student unions, labor unions, arming and training, building these power bases internationally for the left. Well, you have to smash power bases for the right wing as well.
Okay.
And those power bases, for example, would be Wall Street or K Street or certain religious organizations. You freaking name it, pal. That's what we got to do. We smash them. The IMF, the World Bank, World Economic Forum, things like that, they are there to maintain a world capitalist order. Those are things that I believe we need to smash. The Democratic Party, the Republican Party, two incredibly reactionary capitalist parties that, look, man, they're taking the whole ship down with them. You know, we're in deep shit. The stuff in Ukraine right now, I don't even know where to start. You know, Trotsky, by the way, Trotsky born in Ukraine. It's just.
I do have a quick question about that. I'm so sorry to interrupt, but the thing is that being actually involved in Iraq, remember the weapons of mass destruction, about how they got that wrong?
Yeah, absolutely.
You actually got to see things on the ground, and you got to see the difference. Now, one big change that, you know, it's really disturbing how they're not letting Asian Americans participate in these anti-war events. That's my own personal thing. But the thing is that back during the Vietnam era, the pictures of our suffering actually changed sentiment against the war. But you got to see, right, you said funerals being blown up, marriages are being blown up. They're not putting that on the news anymore.
No.
Now that information is being controlled, there's no real desire amongst American people to ask for the truth anymore. And the thing is that, right, when you take a look at what's going on with, you know, how much misinformation is given to the American people from your own, seeing what happened in Iraq, right? That's why I don't believe anything, because I'm Korean. Why do you believe anything that they have to say about Ukraine? I just completely do not pay attention to it, because I don't believe a thing that the news is saying about anything, because I just lost all trust in them from not just Iraq times, but also being Korean American. I don't trust a thing.
Absolutely.
So they say this, I'm like, whatever.
Look, you're dealing with, you know, you got the four pillars of humanity here. What are they? Power, wealth, information, and respect distribution. These are what we talk about. If you go on these scales, it's like a scale, really, not a pillar.
Yeah.
The lower you get on the scale, the more autocratic your society is. And I bring this up because it's very important. Think about it. If wealth distribution is very low, power distribution is going to be very low, information distribution is going to be very low. And what I mean by low is it's concentrated. It's concentrated in the hands of billionaires, mega millionaires, capitalists, and corporations. And you look around, just look around, MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, OAN, Newsmax, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of them, all capitalist platforms that have concentrated the ability to distribute information. And if you can concentrate the ability to distribute information, you can concentrate the ability to distribute respect.
I can't even get like the truth about my own activism out to the world. I don't, right? So like, look, I respect your service for this country. I respect your opinions on Ukraine, even though like I can't feel like I have any knowledge or opinion on that. But just want to keep going on. Earlier, back to the interview, right? You said George Galloway was an influence. I don't know how heavy was of an influence. Is there anybody else that you want to mention before I ask the next question about who influences your style, or right? Maybe some socialism. Do you have like a certain brand of socialism, or maybe a later on interpreter?
Well, I think the World Socialist website has done the most for me, because it's like an archive of scientific and historic political information. It's just what I want. It is encyclopedic in nature. Okay. In the same way that a lot of capitalist outlets are encyclopedic in nature, they just put their own spin on things.
I appreciate that. So I'll definitely look that up. I want my audience to check that out too.
They're part of the ICFI. They are the ICFI's media organ.
Maybe we'll do a show on that later on. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, they're legit.
I'd love to do an interview with them. Okay.
Look, if you want to know what's going on in Ukraine, you really want to check that out. I'm telling you right now, this is a NATO proxy war. I don't know if you've ever watched one of my videos on Ukraine, but I actually go all the way back to 1609 to lay out what's going on here, to give you a framework so that people can understand, so that they're not in a freaking state of bewilderment, so they don't have to listen to CNN.
I'm so skeptical of just all news, especially like over time. I just look at what's happening here right now with my own struggle to get like the truth out and how the narrative is managed, and I just can't believe a damn thing. So I appreciate your work, man, but I just really all these international things in the distant past, I don't trust that any of that information has been transmitted accurately or faithfully. So I just, I'm pretty much sailing, just talking to people that are like yourself out here doing the work. And actually, let's move on to the next question over here, right? This is just the beginning half of the interview is me just getting to know you, understanding who you are, what your ideals are, and one of those questions is, what are you most proud of accomplishing?
That's a good question.
As an activist, yeah, right. Some people say
As
my
an
kids and
activist,
stuff like that, right? But I want to hear more, like as for what you've accomplished in terms of maybe policy change or raising
oh,
awareness or something like that. And yeah,
not much as an activist, in my opinion, because we're getting our asses kicked.
that's true.
I talk about this. I actually talk about this all the time, and the fact that I firmly believe when the left loses, when we lose, which we constantly do, we are constantly getting our asses kicked in the United States. The workers lose, the tenants lose, and the students lose. And when the right wing wins, workers lose, tenants lose, and students lose. And I take a lot of the fucking blame, because I've been doing this a very long time, for the failures of the American progressive movement. I don't consider myself even in that camp necessarily. Every country has a national progressive movement. Every country has it. The reason I call them national progressives is because they have reactionary tendencies. They're not international in nature. Every country has a pseudo left that we have to deal with. Jimmy Dore is a good example of a pseudo leftist. Somebody who's much more aligned to the right, has some left language, is from a certain strata of society that is fundamentally uncomfortable with movements from the left and below. You could just kind of see it in the way he moves. You can see it in the way he talks about socialists. You can see it in the way he talks about communists. Trotskyists in particular, actually. But
Okay.
yeah, I don't think we've accomplished jack shit. We've won elections. I've helped win elections. One of my main things is just making sure Republicans don't win in Pennsylvania. It's a simple little thing to keep the pressure off. We still haven't gotten anything out of it. Think about this for a second. Go back to the 2016 election. Trump lost by 3 million votes, right? The popular. Republicans lost 5 governor's seats. They lost 3 senator seats, 6 House seats. Still got in, still got everything they wanted. And think about this. In November of 2017, 2018, 2019, Republicans lost. They got fucking drubbed. Excuse my language. They got friggin' drubbed. They really did. In 2021, Republicans got drubbed. In 2022, Republicans got drubbed. Take a look, although they did win the House. They did win the House. They lost in the Senate and governor's houses. And if you look at the referendums around the country, they just got clobbered. I think they got clean swept.
I feel like the governor's race was embarrassing. I mean, honestly, look at Fetterman. I mean, he's been sick. He wasn't really able to campaign. Dr. Oz was a joke, another celebrity freaking candidate.
Yep.
And then the thing is
It was a mess.
but Fetterman's sick again.
He's got a stroke. He had a stroke.
Is that the best
right?
candidate that they could really produce? No, it's because he plays ball. And they need to really, instead of pushing people for playing ball, they need to push people. People don't want a real fighter out here. They want a pretty face who's going to keep the status quo. Let's be real. Yeah. Hey, look, that's on the side, though. Let me not go off. Yeah,
No, you're right.
Yeah.
Look. One of the main policies, or one of the main purposes of the Democratic Party, which is considered a center-right party, is to present a left face at times. They use the DSA for that. They use the Working Families Party for that. They use the Communist Party of the USA for that every presidential election. The Communist Party of the USA always endorses the Democratic candidate over the Republican candidate. So what they do is they have this thing we call the compatible left. AOC is on the compatible left. And what compatible means is compatible with the status quo, compatible with imperialism, compatible with the goals of the Republican and Democratic Party establishments. And you've seen it. Look at the Progressive Caucus in Congress. One of the most pathetic things you've ever seen in your life. I mean, they are just utterly pitiful. They get steamrolled at every opportunity. There's no spine. You can't find a spine amongst them.
All right.
That's the compatible left.
Okay. Now we're going to move on to the part of the interview where I start to ask questions. I might come back to some of the learn about yourself if I forgot some, but we're going to move on to really the activist portion. And so you have actually maybe 20, 30 years being an activist, right? Coming back from like the George Bush era. I remember those wars. That was like around 2000. We're in 2023 now.
Absolutely.
So the thing is, and you were aware from an early age. So the thing is that, what do you think are the most effective things that activists can do?
I think student unions, tenant unions, and labor unions, recruiting for them. So I spend a lot of time just lobbying. So I'm on the phone a lot, calling I call Fetterman's office. I call Casey's office. I call Cinema and Mansion. I don't give a shit if they're not in my state. It doesn't matter. I'm always emailing. I bust out the letters. I actually write letters. So I'm always lobbying just like that. It's a simple thing to do, but it ain't the biggest thing you can do. Rallying, marching, protesting, petitioning, none of that even comes close to forming unions, because those unions are literal power bases. Once again, it's the deepest layers and broadest sections of humanity. Once you do it internationally, that is the most important thing we can do. Arm, train, educate, and organize internationally. It's not necessarily like I register a lot of voters. That's not necessarily the most important thing. I do a lot of lobbying. Like I said, it's not necessarily the most important thing.
No,
I spend a lot of time just marketing on behalf of the movement, saying do this, do that, do this, do that. But it's not.
I've indulged myself right now and go at DSA for a second. Right? Yeah, I know y'all right standing tall and proud with your SAG-AFTRA and your UPS stuff. Right? Yeah, okay, that's cool. I fucking dare you to unionize your own campaign workers. I fucking dare you. Okay, go ahead. Do it. You know what I mean? I fucking dare you.
About
so go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
You're 100% right. Oh, you're 100% right.
I fucking dare you to unionize those media outlets that you have your interviews on. I fucking dare you to have them unionized. I fucking dare you.
You know the DSA. Look, the DSA supported Joe Biden.
Yeah.
In his effort to break the railway workers' strike.
Yo, that's what I'm saying. Like, yo,
that is a damning indictment on their political program.
Yo, what's up?
I'm going to release a video. Check this out, buddy.
Go ahead.
I'm going to release a video. Not today. I don't think it'll be today. It might be tonight, but it'll probably be tomorrow. Mm-hmm. It is on anti-communism in the DSA leadership. Not their electeds.
Are
not
you pro-communist?
What's that?
Are you pro-communist?
Well, I mean, I'm a technically I am.
Yeah. Hey, look, communists can be good or bad. Socialism can be good or bad. So I take that approach. But go ahead.
Yeah, I just look. The reason I call myself an international socialist is because you have to have socialism first, and you have to have it internationally. Like capitalists kind of understand this. They try to smash every socialist country that comes up in any way they can, through hook or through crook. You look at Cuba, Nicaragua. Hey, and they make their own mistakes. Every socialist country is human. They make their own mistakes.
Okay.
But capitalists kind of get this, and socialists in the United States at least don't. So, that you cannot leave these refuges here and there.
Quick question. Yeah. Have you tried to? I know, I appreciate your calling out. Honestly, I think it's awesome. Yeah. But do you have any? I know you've worked locally with some candidates. Have you tried participating with your local DSC and other groups like that?
I've been to a lot of their rallies, and they are.
Yeah,
I'm telling you something. Look,
the leadership plays their own little close.
They're young. Yeah. They're very. Look, I'm kind of old. You know what I mean? I'm 35. So compared to a lot of these folks in a college town, I'm going to be. Even when I went to school here, I was like 6 years older than all the.
It's funny how little youth experience matters. Keep going. Yeah, those kids should start looking around, right? And I understand you don't always want other people telling you what to do. But when you know,
I want to tell you something. Yeah. I want to check this out. Check this out.
Keep going.
You mentioned the DSA. Mm-hmm. There was a May Day rally for the DSA, not this year, but the year before.
Go ahead.
And I went to the May Day rally.
Yeah.
And these motherfuckers treated me like a fed. Excuse my language. I got to stop this.
Yeah.
These characters treated me like a fed. They surrounded me and were eyeing me up. I was like, what you want to do?
Why?
What you want? I have no idea. Because I was sitting there filming the rally, maybe. I think that's probably what it was. I was sitting in the back, kind of by myself. Well, one of my friends was actually there, but he was there on accident. He saw me. What are you doing? Hey, I'm at the May Day rally. And I
get it. You're a white guy. You're a white guy with facial hair. You look like
they were very hostile.
They profiled you.
Yeah, there's no
They
doubt about
racially
it.
profiled you. Yeah, that's what happened. I mean, it
And
happens.
look,
Yeah.
I walk around with
They
a
racial
freaking
profile Asian Americans too, but they don't talk about that. Like, there's
absolutely.
a hierarchy in their squad, and it's really kind of
Oh,
yeah.
definitely.
And there's yeah, but yeah, we could
Look,
talk about all that. Yeah. So actually, that's why I was leading that to a question, right? The thing is that you have participated with different groups, right? You've been,
absolutely.
and like we talked about some of your other experience before. What do you think are some of the best practices that people can do, right? Like these kids, right? This video is made for those kids that are going to DSA that feel like something funny is going on, and they can start, right. So what can people do to recognize organizations that are uh, ready to listen to individuals like yourself and be open, but also be effective?
You need to look at the socio-political character of the leadership. And it's like with any country almost. It's the same reason that socialists, international socialists, aren't picking a side between Ukraine and Russia. Okay? You have to look at the socio-political character of an organization or state's leadership. What's the socio-political character of Ukraine? Well, it's obvious. They're an autocratic oligarchy. What's the socio-political character of Russia? Well, it's pretty obvious. They're a little less autocratic, but they're still an oligarchy. And once you are able to assess that, once you're able to look at a political group like the Republican Party, what is their socio-political character? They're racist, sectarian, sexist, sectionalist, they're militarist, they're nationalist, they're classist. Okay? That's their socio-political character. The Democratic Party is all of those things, minus perhaps the most overt forms of racism and religious sectarianism. And that's what you're dealing with. So if you look at the Democratic Socialists of America, what is their socio-political character? Well, they're clearly anti-communist. They're definitely anti-Trotskyist. Okay? They are pro-NATO. They're pro-strike breaking.
Okay.
They're pro-social murder, something we didn't really get to talk about. But I believe firmly that the response to COVID-19 in this country constituted what Engels called, social murder, which is mass murder on behalf of the ruling class through either enacting or withholding policies that will lead to the abrupt, brutal, and premature death of masses of workers, tenants, and students. And that's what happened. I mean, we got a mountain range of bodies from COVID-19, man.
Yeah,
and hey, look, one of the things we like to talk about is all of these problems are international. Inflation, low wages, high rent, high tuition, disease, despair, crumbling infrastructure, homelessness. These are all international problems, and that's why we are so focused on an international program. Look at it this way. If you have a global capitalist order, if the order is global and capitalist in nature, it must be confronted by an international movement, and that movement should be anti-capitalist in nature, should be socialist in nature.
Okay. So now when you first started, right, we talked about the youth, and unfortunately the youth are not taught activism in school. They don't really get a way they don't really get a way to learn these things, and a lot of these kids are actually swept into these DSA organizations by celebrities and people with titles and positions and money that came through. The kids need to start asking where that money came from. Okay. But how was your perceptive shifted over the years, right, from when you first started to now, or maybe something happened recently? Maybe you got turned on something. Maybe you could share that with my audience to really help people that are developing as activists to really maybe, see things at the next.
Look, there's definitely you have to be patient with people, with certain people. You have to allow them their trial and error. I didn't come out of the womb an international socialist. Okay, it didn't just happen that way. I had to go through a lot of trial and error. I had to watch the failures of Obama. I had to watch the failures of the Democratic Party. I had to watch the failures of the Labor Party. Okay, the liberal Democratic parties and the Green parties. One of the real wake-up calls for me, believe it or not, is the failure of the international Green parties to oppose war, to oppose NATO, to fight social murder. They didn't do any of that. They went along. Look, so for example, in the UK, the Green Party is rabidly anti-Russia. In Germany, they're one of the most anti-Russia parties I think you're ever going to find. And going through this helps me realize things. You know, just like with anybody else, you realize, look, the Democratic Party ain't worth a freaking shit, other than maybe keeping Republicans out of power. If you know, you can kind of look at the Republicans the same way. Actually, they ain't really worth much to you unless you want to keep the Democratic Party out. You learn those things over time, and you say, well, what are they doing? Okay, how did we get here? Well, who are the forces that forcefully unfold historical events? Okay, and what have people done in the past to oppose that? It doesn't just start with, for me, it doesn't just start with the revolution in 1917. You got to go back to the Magna Carta in 1215. Okay, you got to go back to the American Revolution, which has been trashed by liberals and a lot of progressives as like a racist revolution or something like that. I don't know how you can possibly look at it that way. Okay. I think people, they want to say, well, Britain got rid of slavery before us, but no, they didn't. Pennsylvania got rid of slavery 50 freaking years before Britain did, and so did other states. So the revolutionary nature of 1776 was what? We no longer have bloodlines ruling things. That's out. Monarchy out. We no longer have religious rule. We were the first secular country in the world, on the planet Earth. We're the first secular country. Gone the way of the dodo. Did they have problems? Yes, massive ones. And by the way, that irreconcilable contradiction of slavery is why we had the Second American Revolution, which was the Civil War. We call it the Civil War. Okay. But it was a revolution. Marx wrote about it at the time, contemporaneously. Socialists came from Europe to fight for the Union. Hundreds of thousands of Southerners left the South to fight for the Union because they believed in revolutionary abolitionism. They were willing to give their lives for it. They weren't just willing to kill for it. They were willing to give their lives for it. And that was to, as we say, get rid of an irreconcilable contradiction. And what does that mean? Well, we say all men are created equal, but black people are 3/5 of a man. That cannot be reconciled. Can't have it. You say all men are created equal, but women can't vote. Not long after, you had the suffrage movement. What was that like? 50 years after the Civil War? You had the women's suffragettes. And you had labor wars, the intensification of class war. Remember the Battle of Blair Mountain. The Battle of Blair Mountain in West Virginia, where workers got bombed by the U.S. government. Remember the Homestead riots in Pittsburgh, where we went and killed Pinkertons to get them out of the way. Yeah. Because they were killing us.
No, I'm sorry to say that with the closure of China as a trading partner, in a lot of ways, they're gonna have to find new cheap labor. They're talking about Mexico. What they're not talking about is the prison labor system, which is also a source for cheap labor. Absolutely, should be super concerning. Definitely a time to be addressed. The AI thing is also, like, there's gonna be a lot of, look, this guy's pretty cool. I hope you get back to producing content. I think you said you slowed down a little bit, which is okay.
Yeah, I haven't been live streaming at all, but I've actually put out a couple videos today. I'll put out some tomorrow.
But political time is actually going to be renewing with the 24 election cycle, so it's a good time to come back, start pumping out stuff again.
Absolutely.
So where can people find your stuff? Where can people find your material?
We're on here on YouTube. You can go to the All American Socialist. It's the same thing on Instagram. I have a Facebook page. It's called Right Wing Watchers. We basically cover right wing terrorists. We keep an eye on that. I'm at MT Richards 400 on Twitter. It's the Disaffected Socialist. So you can find me there. I might end up on freaking Blue Sky or something like that.
Cool. Okay.
But
what is Blue
Sky?
Yeah,
I'm pretty accessible usually. We get in the DMs every once in a while.
Okay. Yeah. So what is actually now that people have your information, what do they have to look forward to? You got any projects coming up, or actually after this is done, I'm going to ask you to work on some particular projects I'm working on, and ask if you want to team up on some things. Yeah.
Oh, I'm down to collaborate.
Oh, that's good.
I have a buddy who was in the Marine Corps. He's down in freaking Kentucky right now. He wants to collaborate too. We got all.
Okay, that's great.
Want to know what's going on locally? I'm probably going to run for office next year.
Okay.
I don't know how here's the problem I have. the bylaws of our local elections basically force you to run in one of the main parties or run as a Democratic Republican, which I don't even know what that is.
Right.
It's just a ballot line that they have. So I have a huge problem as it relates to running for office here. I might have to run in the Democratic Party.
That's okay.
Or I might have to run as a Democratic Republican.
It's just a label, man. It's just a name. Don't worry about that. You know what I mean?
It is local, and it is local. But nevertheless.
Every new generation decides how.
Check this out.
Go ahead.
We have 9 Starbucks shops in a Trader Joe's in State College that are not unionized right now. I've been talking to these folks.
Oh, great.
I don't drink coffee, but I'll go down there and like order. They make food, so I'll order some food, and I'll say, "What's your name?" Unionized Starbucks. You know, that's my name. Unionized Starbucks. They said, "What? Are you guys unionized? Has anyone come talk to you?" They actually haven't been talked to yet. I haven't found a single Starbucks worker in State College that's been talked to anyone about unionizing except for me.
You know. So
we got a lot of work to do. We're going to be registering voters on campus. I'm going to try my damnedest to de-clubify the student union. My biggest issue with student unions is that instead of fighting for lower tuition, better student benefits, and improved learning conditions, they're fighting for the chess club or the queer club or whatever. If you want clubs, that's part of conditions, but that's last.
The Office of Student Life has them set up for this. They've been deliberately tanking student activism for decades. They've been deliberately keeping these students from empowering themselves, and it's a lie. And actually, instead of teaching you to empower your kids, instead of teaching your kids to empower themselves, they're being taught to keep the boss happy and to make the boss rich, and that's why. And it's destroying our children.
Look, American students are taught from a young age that they are to obey.
Yeah.
The vast amount of workers, you get there on time, you don't interrupt, you don't ask too many questions. We don't teach a lot of critical thinking or anything like that. You're supposed to be a good worker bee, and if you're not, you're a degenerate, you're a defective product. Whereas if you go to private schools, if you go to some of these private schools where these rich kids go, they aren't taught like that. They're taught that they rule, that they are going to be the rulers of society. They're taught to take charge. They're taught to be politically active for what they want. Mm-hmm. We aren't being taught that. And the student unions are a big issue. Look, we have a tenant union here. It's kind of nascent. It's working. They're growing, but it needs to grow quickly. One of the things I worry about with tenant unions isn't so much clubs or a bureaucracy, but getting a little cliquish. I know a girl who was doing tenant union organizing, and they had problems with cliques forming in the tenant union. They're taking shots at others. You're not doing enough work. You're not doing the right nonsense.
Okay.
Can't have any of that. It's all about bringing in new people to the program. Something I tell leftists all the time. You have to be more diplomatic. You have to be more likable. You can't be the most repulsive person ever and completely undiplomatic and expect to win, especially when you're getting your ass kicked already.
Man, I'll worry about that when we get there, yeah. But how about, so how far are you from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania?
Probably 4 hours or so.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good. I'm actually dead in the center of the state. I'm in Center County. It's called Center County, and I'm in the center of it.
Did you know that I was in Philly recently?
No, what was up there?
Okay, well, the thing is that Vincent Moto, actually the first guy to be freed in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania history on DNA evidence, actually was having his yearly celebration. I actually met Muti, who actually did the last live stream I did was with Muti, who actually was imprisoned when Mumia Abu-Jamal was imprisoned. And I actually, so that was wild. Now, while I was waiting there to, because they were supposed to pick me up at the bus stop, but, there was a delay. So during the delay, I actually went in front of the Starbucks, and I actually protested, and I have pictures of that in front of the Jefferson House where so I actually showed solidarity with the Starbucks workers. I've also covered Starbucks workers here in New York City. So actually, Pennsylvania, as you know, is a very high important swing state, and the thing is that right now, I don't know if you know, but I have more interviews in the 22 election cycle than any other YouTuber. And I also got something. Do you know about the Unified Platform? Did you see that project?
No, what's that?
Okay. So the thing is that I actually because I talked to more candidates than any other YouTuber in the 22 election cycle, I actually got Republicans, Democrats, Independents, Greens, and Libertarians to all agree on over 100 different platform issues, including we couldn't get to agree to end the death penalty. But we did get agreed to end predatory pricing in prison commissaries. We agreed that people who have been wrongfully incarcerated should be freed the next business day. There shouldn't be like year-long waits, right? Yeah. We all agreed to a bunch of positive things. We all agreed to actually free Assange. That was crazy, right? Yeah.
Free Assange.
We even agreed to
absolutely.
Yeah, but these projects were not talked about. There's also another guy who I met doing this, who's a former 3-time New Hampshire legislator who actually moved to North Carolina to have more, once again, Carolinas, Pennsylvania, Nevada,
North Carolina
Texas.
especially.
Yeah, very important states for swing states to make national policy. I have teams there, and being from Pennsylvania, you're very important yourself. So you're someone who's willing to do the work, someone who's on the ground, someone who has good credibility as a former, armed, veteran, combat war veteran. Appreciate your sacrifice, but also appreciate your vocal and long-standing opposition to war. So,
Absolutely.
You have credibility on that stance too. I know a lot of people are excited about Matt Ho, and earlier you mentioned Chris Hedges. Okay, I'm
Do you know much about Chris Hedges? Have you been paying attention to him at all? I haven't listened to him.
I agree with what you said about George Galloway, right? Yeah, it's kind of true for Chris Hedges for me. Back in the day, he was good, real solid, one of the best out there, hands down, no questions asked. But nowadays, he's hanging out with Jimmy Dore, he's going to his convention, and the fact of the matter is that he's talking about the workers, but he's not going to the meetings to see how the workers are actually treated. More than 5-6 generations of different workers have come out repeatedly accusing the People's Party of stealing money, of treating them badly, sexual assault, and the results just speak for themselves. But Chris Hedges has asked no questions, and I've been alive, right? I'm here in New York, the #1 market in the nation, 8.5 million people. I was there at Lee Camp's. Lee Camp's not allowed to do no shit in New York no more. Nick Brown thinks he's going to speak in New York. He must be dreaming. Now, the thing is that anyways, at any event that Lee Camp or Ron Placone try to do here in New York City, especially Jimmy Dore, right, yeah? I'm going to their events and screaming outside the door about how fake it all is. I'm screaming for justice for the People's Party members. You see me going, I don't know if you see the video of me going at Susan Sarandon and Katie Halper. You know what I mean? The press is not reporting any of this, but I'm busting up all the events. So I'm telling you.
Katie Halper kind of like...
Go ahead. Just to finish off, Chris Hedges knows. Chris Hedges knows that workers are being treated like shit in the People's Party, but he's too busy with his hoity-toity, millionaire friends. That's all, you know what I mean? And he knows, but he's decided to take the easy road, and he's no longer champion of the workers or the unions. Once again, the unions in the media, the unions in or the unions in the political campaigns. He's not talking about that. What's up, Chris?
Yeah, he's like he right now is definitely more concerned with making some sort of detente with the pseudo-left. Yeah. And the socialists, we call it the pseudo-left for a reason, because they're not actually pushing any left policy.
He's not a grassroots.
They're not actually pushing a socialist program.
He's he's too cool for the workers. He got no time for the workers. He's down with management now.
One of the main characteristics of the pseudo-left, and I repeat this every time I talk about them, is that they come from a particular upper strata of society, usually the top 20% at least, and they are fundamentally uncomfortable with mass movements from the left and below. They're the guys who were supporting the truckers protest was kind of a good example. There was this truckers protest that didn't have any progressive demands. But since they were truckers, the pseudo-left can very easily be fooled into supporting this.
Not only that, right, but actually, I don't know if you see my video where I actually interviewed so many candidates about Assange. I think there's been over 100 candidates by now who have directly asked if they would support the freedom for Assange. But instead of covering my work or expanding upon it, or actually in New York City, right, when I met with actually Assange's brother, and his dad and stuff, right, I talked about a way that we could get together and actually lobby as a unit. But instead, I was actually my stuff was thrust aside so people could go and throw money at the celebrities. And I asked, what have they produced or what have they actually done besides fly their comfortable friends out? Once again, you look at not trying to they know they're stepping on actual progress on this issue to actually build more press and to engage in their brand. And then what happened is Katie Halper, who actually stood in the way of Assange activism, straight up, yeah, she's being made as to create an easy job for her because they have the little group of, you know, media friends, and even if they're standing with each other, even when they're fighting with each other, there's still, this is our thing, and you're not allowed in. So even, you know, Katie Halper and Crystal Ball are still friends behind the scenes. No matter how the people's beefing each other, they know it's them and the rest of us. We're not allowed. So, you know, screw them.
We see who's going to whose weddings.
Yeah.
We see who's going out with who.
That Jeffrey Epstein shit. Exactly, man. Exactly. You know Jeffrey Epstein shit. Yeah, stop it.
They're all in this big circle.
Yeah.
And they are concerned with maintaining their position, their pulpit, basically.
There you go.
Far more than they are at advancing Assange's freedom or anything else.
That's all it is, man.
There's
that's the
no
truth.
doubt about it.
That's the truth. So I'm just out here ruthlessly pushing it forward because you know what?
I mean,
yeah.
One of the reasons people love Assange so much is because Assange put it on the line.
Yeah.
He didn't say, you know what, this is just a little club for me and that's just how it's going to be. No, he put it all on the line, released Vault 7, and they freaking came after him with the entire weight of an imperialist apparatus.
Well, once they pissed off the wrong people, right? They liked it when it was handy for them, but once you know, he actually talked truth to the real power. Oh, they gotta shut that up. They can't allow that.
Look, they all have a limit.
Yeah,
they all have this like limit as to how far they're willing to go, who they're willing to challenge. You know, Katie Halper is a perfect example for me because she knew for the longest time that if she challenged Jimmy Dore, her freaking milk crate would be kicked out from under her. She would lose her pulpit. So she waited and waited and waited and waited and never did, and then just kind of silently exited stage right.
Yeah.
That's what she did.
That's cowardice, and also she's a proven non-fighter. She's a proven, you know, like you said, cooperator with people that's oppressive. Straight up, stop.
They're definitely willing to roll over. Look, I actually, you know, who is it? Ron Placone.
Yo, that dude, you're not allowed in New York no more. Go ahead, try to do something.
And Graham Elwood and all these guys. They were attached to Jimmy Dore.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
For like the longest time. I think they were
until they give us justice. And Nick Brown, are you trying to do stuff in New York on the August 6th? Whatever. That's on a separate issue, and I'm calling all my friends to help out. They're not going to help, but that's all right though. I'm used to that. Yeah, whatever.
Look,
anyways.
For the longest time.
Hey, let's talk about
Ron Placone's from PA, by the way.
The best revenge we can get is to keep working on our issue. So the thing is that there's actually hundreds of people filed for presidential candidates. I'm trying to do this. Look, they've been copying all my shit for years. You know what I mean? They copy this shit with their pretty faces. Keep fucking copying me, bitches. I don't give a fuck. Let's go. You know what I mean? You're going to have to contend with me on the streets and my whole national fucking team. Fuck y'all. Anyways.
I like that you actually get out there.
Hell yeah.
A lot of people don't get out there.
That's because
I'm at rallies and
that's
protests.
Because they armchair activists. I'm a street activist. They're armchair activists.
You have to get out there.
We can't
do it in our rooms.
We are the streets. You can't stop this. So
absolutely.
So actually, like I talked about the unified platform, we're doing it again for 24. But I have actually working now with the 3-time former legislator from New Hampshire, Brian Winters, who has something American Union. We're going to publicly source a new now. If you take a look at a lot of legislators, remember that legislative package that all the Democrats just signed and it didn't even read? Remember that?
Of course.
That's the way legislation works nowadays, right? Yeah, this legislative package. So with these actual candidates, right, to affect the national conversation, they say Republicans bad, Democrats bad, blah, 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 whatever. Fuck, we don't even bother with all that shit. We get all the candidates together who's down to have an actual conversation, work on positive stuff like if they don't want to end the death penalty, they can't agree on that. But if they can agree to end prison commissary pricing, I'll start with that.
Get as many things down as you can.
And then we can start getting actual progress on real issues and start talking to one another and stop letting these cushy-ass people who's defining the narrative and you know, misleading us. And let's talk with real people like yourself that's on the ground. Once again, Pennsylvania, extremely important. I have some very key eyes I just mentioned right now. Former person who was, he just got out after 40 years in prison. So the thing is that his connection to Mimi Abu Jamal should push him to some places. Hopefully that can help you as well. Matt Ho, you're from Pennsylvania. We could talk again, but you let me down, man.
Absolutely.
With that war Rage Against the War Machine. if you want to work with him, that's fine. I ain't mad, but hopefully do a
Look,
better
you,
job.
you made a really good
Yeah.
point. You made a really good point that American progressives especially should internalize this idea that we could get everyone on the same page for so many different issues and you could start accomplishing them before you start killing each other over the thing you disagree with. They do the exact opposite. American progressives, they form the circular firing squad. They start blasting each other. Okay, and then when they're freaking done annihilating each other, then they find one thing that they agree on, and maybe they'll go for it.
That's how they maintain control for themselves, by making a fake target, right? That's the bad guy. That's why you must only support me. That's why you have to be in my cult. That's why, right? Yeah, I'm the only one.
Purity. It's like purity policing.
Exactly. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's why they must mask the people that are actually getting things done. So all we got to do is just keep getting things done. Either they're going to have to start changing to be more like us, which we win anyways, fuck y'all, or, right, yeah, they got to step up, or we just embarrass the shit out of them. So look, I prefer the second way, but I'll take the first way. I got nothing to lose. Fuck y'all, I'm coming, yeah?
Their camp is really, you're either going to win or you're going to go the way of the freaking dodo at this point.
Yeah.
Because, look, the hour is late, okay, and the situation is dire.
Hey, I need soldiers, man. I need people like yourself that's not afraid to do whatever it takes. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to do anything crazy. I'm a peaceful guy, too. But, I mean, as in terms of, like, doing the work, running for office, raising the conversation, building knowledge, forming unions.
Doing regular politics is dangerous enough.
Yeah.
I mean, in October, we had the Proud Boys show up, and I helped confront them on campus. The police, of course, sided with them. They ran off.
Hey, let me tell you one way we can work with police. Yeah, I know you're not probably a big fan of the police, but one way you can.
Well, I'm not a fan of abolishing police. I don't believe.
Okay, good. Okay, so one thing we're trying to work on right now is actually, I think we have cooperation on this from Serpico. The thing is, you know who Serpico is, right? The NAP Commission.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Police reform. So the thing is that he supports outside. Right. The thing is that unfortunately, internal crime investigation, they're not really investigating each other. And the thing is that there's something called a Civilian Review Board, which is supposed to be a way for the community to actually hold the police accountable. But
they seem like they've been defanged.
They absolutely. They either they take away their right to subpoena, and also a lot of times even though they say they're civilian, they're all political or organizational appointees. I'm telling. So we're trying to bring national addressment to this issue and really get this done. That could be another project, right, to help your campaign, to help, to work along with Muti and them. Also, Pennsylvania, just so you know, has no wrongful incarceration, compensation law. So the fact is that Vincent Moto, 27 years later, still has not received a dime, despite being incarcerated for, I think, almost a decade. Wrongfully. It's worth his pain and suffering is worth nothing. But meanwhile, the politicians are going out saying they're for reform the criminal justice system. They're not making things right now. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
Look, when it comes to like police and prisons, the amount of work we have to do is Herculean. You got to end qualified immunity and things like that. I believe in obviously demilitarizing the police. Technically, I guess that's defunding them a bit, right? Mm-hmm. But I do not believe in abolishing police. Get rid of private prisons. Get rid of the death penalty. Get rid of extended solitary confinement. When you put someone in solitary confinement, it's supposed to be like for a couple hours. They throw them in there and they just leave them there.
It's a violation of human rights, actually.
It's outrageous. Civil asset forfeiture is another thing.
It's an international embarrassment. Guantanamo.
Secret courts.
It's horrible. It's an international embarrassment.
It really is.
It's really ridiculous.
FISA's a secret court. The NSA has all of your information. They may not look at all of it, but they have it all. And then you have something like the CIA, which operates as a death squad often. I mean,
so look,
we have so much.
I want to wrap up this interview for just because I want to keep the interviews pretty much the same, but I will be talking with you off camera. I do actually just want to inform my audience, though, that I'm very excited to talk with Mr. Richards here, a.k.a. Swaggy P. What's up to the Yellow Brick Road Discord? I hope you guys watch this. Swaggy P. Why not, man? Hey, man, I'm DJ L7,
baby, I love it.
Hey, why not, man? Man. That's cool, bro. And I'm glad to finally link up with you after all these years. We have a lot of history going back. Talk about Frank analysis. There's so many different I know you had
Oh,
some.
I remember him.
Yeah.
He's still around, isn't he?
Oh my God. There, we have
Yeah,
history. So the thing is that we will be doing future shows together. I hopefully so. I'll be
absolutely.
doing more
We
work
got
with
to
this
talk.
guy. Yeah.
One of these times, we have got to get together. We got to talk about the war in Ukraine,
Okay.
its implications, and maybe even the pandemic and things like
You
that.
know, I'm in contact with the guy who goes to the second international. I know you represent the fourth international. It seems like maybe the second and fourth international could work together. We'll see. Or will
Yeah,
those groups try to protect their own? Or are they really? Is the difference between permanent revolution, which I'm actually, yeah, there has to be a constant. There will always be a fight. I do agree with that to an
yeah, it
extent.
never
Yeah.
ends. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
constant.
Yeah. It's up to every generation to protect their liberties and every generation to protect to make sure that
Yes.
they don't go into hero worship and get into garbage. Yeah.
Yeah, people talk about generational change. Well, it's got to be civilizational
Yeah.
change.
All right.
You
So
got to freaking add them up.
all right.
Yeah.
Before I get off, before I just end the stream, I'm just gonna check the chat right quick, and see if anybody has anything to say. I don't have a lot of live viewers. Oh, we have about 7 people looking so far. Interesting. Okay. Let me give a quick check.
How generational change.
Okay, we need critical thinking. Okay. What's up? We need critical thinkings in the house. Okay, so that's not just shouting out Swaggy P. Some people from
By
the
the way, we just
most,
mentioned that
yeah.
we need critical thinking in schools.
Yeah, that's true. All right, man. So I'm just gonna end it here. Thanks again.